I, like a lot of other hobbyists, are very excited about Trench Crusade currently. One of the differences between me and most other people is I honestly didn't know that this was coming before it just launched on Kickstarter. I was not a person that was following the process. I didn't hear anything from the grapevine about it. It literally just dropped. Everyone was talking about this incredible game, and that's when I got sucked in, learned a little bit more about the lore, had a proper look at the miniatures, and fell in love. I've been wanting to do some proper miniatures for quite a long time, but haven't really found the right time to do it in my kind of schedule. But now I finally have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a video a month for 6 months on Trench Crusade, go through one model from each of the awesome starter factions and kind of learn a little bit more about their background, their lore, and then obviously get one of the models painted up. So hopefully you guys are excited for this series. The first model from the series is going to be the Trench Cleric from the new Antioch range of miniatures. They're my absolute favorite. They're my gang, if you will. So I'm very excited to bring that to the tabletop. So without further ado, let's dive in and get that painted up. Okay, so this is the beautiful Trench Cleric miniature. He's got a cross on his back with a sword basically tied to it. The Holy Bible in one hand. Bedecked head to toe in armor. He's got a parchment hanging off him. He's very cool. A big thank you to Green Stuff World for sponsoring today's video and sending me out a whole host of new goodies to try out. Specifically, I'm going to be tackling their paint range in today's video. Yeah, I'm going to be starting with their mega set, the starter one, which is 48 paints. I'm going to restrict myself to just that. So if you bought the Green Stuff World starter paint set, what could you do with it? And let's have a look. So the first thing I grabbed was olive green from that particular set, and I decided to base coat in all of the armor panels on the cleric with that. My personal new Antioch warband is not in any way, shape or form drab greens or anything like that. It's actually kind of halved or quartered orange and black. It definitely stands out on the tabletop, but I don't think that represents the warband as a whole very well. So I decided I'd go for a much more traditional paint scheme for this model. So if people want to follow along, it makes a little bit more sense. Okay, the first thing that I noticed with the Green Stuff World paints is that they were quite watery, which had me worried when I first started putting it on the palette and playing around with it. But when I started applying it to the miniature, I did realize that even though it is quite thin, it is very high in pigment. So it did give fantastic coverage. That's what I was worried about. I was worried about it being too thin and me having to try and build up coat after coat after coat, which just wasn't something I was kind of willing or interested in doing. Okay, we have the parchment color here now. This isn't the parchment color, the khaki color. The drab color, sorry, and we're using this for everything that's going to be parchment. So basically it's got a big skirt of parchment, and obviously the interior of the book as well is going to go that color. Later on I realized that I should have done all the ropes like that, and so the ropes will just magically appear that color later on. Scorched wood was used for all of his beautiful warm leather brown kind of bandolier pouches he has across his midriff, his pistol holster, and I obviously decided to do scorched brown for the scorched wood color, so the cross gets done in this brown as well. When we get to the layering stage later on, we will pull that leather kind of belt and the scorched wood in two very different directions with different browns, so they won't just look like a leather cross on his back at all. So don't be worrying about that. I'm sure everyone else was biting their nails wondering what the hell I'm doing, right? No? Okay. Anyway. Okay, with the brown, green and the khaki color all blocked in, it's time to start moving in with those metallics. So anthracite metal is the first one we are going to go for, which is a nice dark kind of a gunmetal silver. And obviously we need to hit things like his chainmail and his pistol. There's certain sections of the book in his hand. I gave the book in his hand a very interesting cover. It's got silver framing around the outside, and then it's got gilding in the corners and then a color in the middle. So that's red, silver for the round bits, and then gold for the gilding. But you don't see it very much in this video, but I did spend a lot of time on the outside of the book. But I guess that's okay. Okay, with those parts blocked in, we then went and grabbed our steampunk copper color for all of the other details. Obviously, this is a man of the church, if you will, so I'm sure he'll have access to lots of wealth. And obviously, lots of holy relics and stuff will bedeck his armor. So, lots of golden crosses and little trinkets and bells and stuff. So, we're going to get those all blocked in with gold. Okay, a little bit of the red truth, and that's just going to be for the kind of the soft leather bits of the book and the handle of the sword that's going down the back of the cross. I'm sure in one of the videos in later months I'll focus more on specific colors. What are the reds like? What are the greens? What are the blues like? You know what I mean? So we will give you more an example of the red later on. But this is a perfect use of it for those little details. Okay, blushing flesh is the one I'm going to use to base coat the tiny bit of flesh which is showing, which is just his cheeks. And then we're going to do some slate grey for his beard. The skin tones, I must say, I'm very, very impressed with. If you watched my video last week about the big war engine, which I'm now suddenly not remembering the name of, for Trench Crusade, the guy drenched across the wheel. I did obviously use the Green Stuff Road paints for that. I love the skin tone that I got with their paints. So much so that I was painting another model for my Imperial Fist army. I was painting up Torgarden finally. And when I got to painting his face, I was like, nah, I'm just going to play around with those Green Stuff World paints again. And I did. And I really like how his face turned out too. So yeah. The earth shade color is now going to be applied across the entire miniature. Obviously, this is Trench Crusade. This is the grimmest of grim dark. This is all about those kind of dark, muted tones. So I think if we get him done with an entire brown wash, he is going to kind of, all those colors are going to tie together. He's going to look really nice, and it's going to be the perfect platform to start layering from. So this is the result. We've gotten some work done on his base as well, a little bit of texture paste. That will just magically get done again later on throughout the video. But I do really like how this is looking. Now, because I'm limiting myself to just that starter set, and there is 3 or 4 greens inside that starter set, they don't really match each other tonally, so I didn't want to layer with those. So I just decided to mix that khaki color with the olive green again, kind of like a 60-40, 60% being the khaki, just to really brighten it up a bit. And then I used that to layer up the green armor. I didn't want to steal the attention away from the rest of the model. The green, like, I pulled up the official Trench Crusade artwork for a cleric, and he looks kind of like this. It's really dark militaristic green, and then obviously he's got all of his other colors, parchment, his gold trim, and all that kind of stuff on top of that. So that's what I was going for. So I know the green armor doesn't pop a huge amount, but I wasn't trying to make it pop a huge amount, if that makes sense with you. After that, we jumped up to a brighter brown, and we started to base coat in, like I said, all those different leather pouches and the holster. As you notice, I didn't do the cross in that. So Genghis khaki is what's going to be used to base coat out the parchment parts of this model. Now, once again, there was kind of 3 colors which kind of led in the, I don't know, the correct order to layer up this model. But I knew that if I went through that entire process, I was going to end up with something a little bit too bright. So what I decided to do is go with that anyway, knowing that I was kind of going to glaze it all back down again with the sepia shade in the box set. So I'm kind of curious. Yeah, sepia is one of my favorite shades, so I want to see what it looks like. So when I got to parchment, as you can see, I still did quite a heavy kind of layering job or highlight job with the parchment to make all those individual strands stand out, including the cover or the pages inside of the book, just to make them pop a little bit. But then obviously the tones of that don't match the rest of the model. So like I said, we've grabbed our sepia shade miniature or paint and are going to apply that across all those colors to once again help it tie back in with the model. But it's distinctive enough, and it looks like parchment, old and weathered, and who knows what kind of holy scripture is on that guy's armor as he marches into battle. The inks are another thing that I am quite impressed with by them. They kind of remind me a little bit more of the kind of older Games Workshop shades, which they do darken the model down a little bit more. But I quite like that. I quite like darkening the model way down, giving me a really nice canvas to layer up from. That's just me. So I'll be using them a lot more. And the fact they call them inks, but then they're not glossy at all. Is it just my silly brain that thinks inks are supposed to be glossy? Or is it just I'm set in my old ways for the old Games Workshop inks? Okay, we grabbed a brighter golden metallic-y style color, and then we started layering up all those details. The crossguard, the sword, the pommel, all of the crosses that exist across the model. And I decided to add the trim of the armor in gold. I did that with the base coat, obviously, and now I'm doing it with the layering. In the artwork, he doesn't appear to be painted that way, but he is covered in loads of trim, so I think it would work really well for him, and I think it does. Elven flesh used to highlight that tiny bit of skin, which is literally just the tops of his cheeks, and if you go in behind the kind of nose guard of his helmet, you can get just a little bit of the sides of his nose. Makes him look really cool. Back to slate grey, because obviously, like I said, we shaded down the beard after we applied slate grey, which means you can go back to slate grey and do a slight highlight to make that beard look really nice and detailed. Always following the same direction, upwards and downwards motion to go with the kind of the direction the hair is moving. Makes it look really natural. It looks really nice. And with that, we have our finished Trench Cleric miniature ready to serve New Antioch and try and fight back the hordes from hell. Really pleased to have this miniature painted up. I really like him. The only problem is it doesn't match my New Antioch, so I'll have to paint a whole other one for me, but that's okay. This one is just for this series of videos, trying out the Green Stuff World range of paints. And as goes this one, I'm really pleased with all the results. I did enjoy doing that. I didn't have to fight against the paints. It's more of a process of discovering how they work and what kind of tips and tricks I can get from them. So I'm quite happy with the final result. Hopefully you guys are as well. If you enjoyed it, please do make sure you give the video a like. Make sure you're subscribed, drop comments, and please do check out things like the Patreon stuff below. Thanks, guys.